Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm bringing you my TBR for September. But before we jump in with any of the books, I do just want to do a little bit of an announcement on my channel. So I put a little post out in the kind of community section a couple of weeks ago talking about the fact I was dropping down to one video a week posting, and that I'd be taking September off. And I just kind of wanted to take this as an opportunity to kind of chat to you guys about what's going to be happening on my channel, kind of long-term plans. If you really do not care, I'll leave a timestamp down below that you can just skip to the books. It's not a problem, you don't have to stick around. But for those of you who are regulars who do watch a lot of my content, I just wanted to let you guys know that basically I'm going to be taking the whole of September off. This is because I'm both getting married in that month, but I'm also starting an apprenticeship where I'm really learning how to become a veterinary nurse. Now this course is several years long, so because of that my workload is going to be dramatically different to what it has been previously on this channel. So that's why I'm also dropping down to one video a week, and I've already started doing that for August because I just cannot maintain the volume of content as well as wedding planning and getting all the paperwork required for the course to start, let alone when the actual course is genuinely going and I've got lots of work to do kind of in my free time as such. So don't worry, my intention is not to completely give up the channel, but the quantity of reading and the quantity of content in general probably is going to take a little bit of a dip, but we're hopefully going to stick around and that'll be fine. And obviously these are both like really exciting things that I'm super psyched about, so if that means that some of my hobbies you have to take a little bit of a back burner for a while, that's totally okay. It's kind of the give and take of career and work-life balance as such. So because of that, September, I really don't know how my reading is going to go. There's a chunk of time in it that I've got off for my honeymoon, which is going to be really lovely, but also I've got a brand new course starting. And when I started my new job in the veterinary industry last November, my reading completely tanked and I read essentially only middle grade books, bar the odd non-fiction book here or there because it was non-fiction November. So I really tentatively put out this TBR, but I fully expect and give myself permission to get to literally none of these and just read whatever takes my fancy. And if that's 13 Animorphs books in 1 month like it was last November, that's completely okay. So my intention is also to just let any books that I don't finish for the history challenge to drift over. If you haven't seen that TBR already, I will link it in all the various places that one links things on YouTube. But let's kind of talk about the 10 or so books that I've grabbed that I'm hoping to get to in September. The first one is Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Galley. This is a historical fiction and it is about cowboys and lesbian librarians, I believe. I don't actually know anything about the plot, I just know a little bit about the setting, but it's very short, it's kind of more of a novella, and it was incredibly popular on BookTube like 2 years ago, I think. It's supposed to be really good fun. So I'm trying to go for kind of lighter, more immersive stuff for the month ahead because I think it will be a lot easier to jump into it. And another historical fiction that I picked up really recently that I'm really excited by is Emma Donoghue's The Pull of the Stars. So this is set in 1918 in Ireland, and it's specifically about I think the Spanish flu and like an outbreak of that in a hospital, specifically in the like maternity ward, and it's about kind of the characters dealing with that. So I think it's gonna be really interesting. I love historical fiction. I think the medical side of it will be really interesting and helpful because I will be learning more medical stuff, so I like the idea of kind of touching base with that. And I've been really tempted to pick this up since buying it basically. And Emma Donoghue is an author that I've really wanted to read for a while, but Room, which is her big one, does not appeal to me in the slightest, whereas this sounds right up my street. So I'm hoping that I'll really enjoy this, and again it'll be that real like immersive escapism. A fantasy that I'm super keen to get to is Battle Mage by Stephen Aaron. This is a really cool high fantasy with a really fantastic magic system that works based on like kind of webs and like webs of energy. Very excited about it. I actually read technically what is kind of book 4, kind of book 1 in the series. Basically he has this trilogy, of which this is the first book, that is talking about an epic battle and a war, hence Battle Mage. But then the other trilogy he has is like 20 years on from the war and kind of dealing with the like civil unrest, more of like a Cold War approach. So I've read book 1 from that trilogy and really enjoyed it. Don't think it's really necessary to go back and read this one, but I want to get that backstory and that kind of history of the world, and I really want to immerse myself into the magic system. So I've been talking about trying to read this book for literal years. It might be time to finally just commit and read it. A really sweet, light-hearted book that I think will be really easy to dip in and out of. I do have a few books on here that I'm intending to like be able to put down for a while and come back to them, more kind of disjointed stories as such, and one of those is Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by by, got my hand over it, Kazu Kawaguchi. So the first book is just literally called Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and it was one of my favourite reads of 2020. It was one of the first books I read, if not the first book that I read in 2020, and it was so difficult to top. And it was about this cafe where you can go back in time. You can only go back to a specific moment. You can't leave the chair that you're in the cafe, and you only have the length of time before the cup of coffee in front of you gets cold before you have to come back. So it's more about giving people opportunities to either overhear sort of conversations that set right some kind of family relationship, or to be able to say something to a lost one, or these kinds of sort of quiet beauty moments. This is Japanese translated fiction, and I do think Japan does an amazing job of, like, a lot of Japanese literature is really focused on like the kind of quiet beauty of the world. I am a little hesitant about the sequel because I think it will be difficult to recapture that magic, and I kind of know what I'm walking into, but I'm hoping it's got that real like feel-good sensation of the first book. So I'm excited about this one, and like I say, it's short and it should be really easy to like dip in and out of it because they are these kind of separate stories with vague characters threading through. Another chunky fantasy that I'm not gonna lie, I might not get to. I think fantasy is going to be hit or miss as to whether I want full immersion or whether I just can't handle that level of world building. But if I am in the mood for fantasy, then we have The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. This is book 1 in the Inheritance trilogy. I've read the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, one of my all-time favourite fantasy series. Not gonna lie, can't remember much about what this one's about, but I don't really care because I didn't know what the Broken Earth trilogy was about before going into that as well, and I kind of like just sort of bowling into fantasy and seeing what the world building does. And honestly, it's fantasy. There's going to be some sort of factions that are fighting, there's going to be some kind of magic god supernaturally element, everyone's going to have funky names, and it's going to be slightly medieval. Life's going to be great. I loved what N.K. Jemisin did in the Broken Earth trilogy. It's one of the most interesting and innovative fantasy I've ever read, so I'm really excited to see what else she can do, and I'm hoping, like, I devoured the Broken Earth trilogy, so I'm hoping this one would again really like suck me in and kind of get me out of my head. The next two are really ones that I don't know if I'm going to read. They're not really normally my cup of tea in some ways, but I'm just looking for something a bit different, a little bit shorter that I can dip in and out of, and one of those is a poetry collection. I know, poetry is one of the few things I don't really read on this channel, but I have Shakespeare's sonnets. I mainly have it because it's pretty, and I think I needed to make the bundle that I was buying. It was like a buy 5 or 10 books for a very discounted price, and I chucked this one in. I have no intention of reading this cover to cover, but I might jump in and read a few of them, and fuck it, we'll give it a go. We'll see what it's like. One that I bought really recently, which is a short story collection, which again, not normally my cup of tea, but this one I've heard incredibly good things about, and that is Love in Colour by Bolu Balaloa, and this is mythical tales from around the world retold, and it is supposed to be really just stories of love with a very kind of folklore mythical influence. I've heard good things. This has been on my radar for a while now, and I love learning about folklore from different cultures, so I'm hoping that this will really tick the box. A couple of people who I follow on Goodreads are currently reading it at the moment, and they've all kind of, their updates are quite positive, so I am intrigued. And this cover is stunning, and look, it's got sprayed edges and like pretty book, and again, I'm hoping short story collection, totally like it can read between classes, that kind of thing, will be really good. There are 2 non-fiction on this list because I'm not fully willing to let go of my non-fiction completely. It may just be too much for me, plus I'm going to have like things drifting over from the history challenge, but we thought we'd try to get to Seeds by Thor Hansen. This is a natural history book looking at the history of seeds and how the evolution of the seed has changed, like impacted humans, but also impacted just like life on our planet in general. Thor Hansen is a big name in nature/natural history writing, and I've never read a single thing from him, so I am really keen to jump in, give this one a go, and if I like him, he's got a huge back catalogue that I can totally try and work through. I've heard really positive things, and I have learned a bit about seeds and kind of their role within human and general evolution before, so it'd be really fun to kind of formalize that a little bit more. So yeah, psyched for this one. And then one that came through from my queer book subscription service that I subscribe to, which is from Categories Books, is Gay Bar by Jeremy Atherton Lynn. Yeah, I think that's what it says. Why We Went Out. Honestly, it's quite hard to read this. So this is a combination of a memoir / a sort of social history, and it's specifically looking at the gay bar and sort of quite hypersexualized gay community just after the AIDS epidemic broke, I believe. potentially around the time it's looking at kind of London, San Francisco, LA, sort of these really big hubs of sort of kind of gay mecca as such. So I've just literally finished And the Band Played On, which was a history of the AIDS epidemic, but that one finished around kind of sort of the late 80s, like 87, 88. So this is kind of looking at that time just a little bit afterwards, plus it's got a lot more of a like real social history look rather than having all the science. But I really wanted to learn more about that kind of an era, and sort of the community in general. So I think this is gonna be really perfect, and I love the like social history memoir combined kind of vibe. So I think this is gonna be really, really interesting. And again, I'm hoping memoir radically different to any of my lifestyle, so like really kind of pulling me out of my own head and like something that I can really like sink my teeth into and just forget about the world, which is like hardcore escapism is what we're looking for September. So that's it. None of these I have on audiobook as far as I'm aware, so audiobook wise I'm just gonna let mood reading completely take me. There will be a couple of audiobooks in there because we've got some longer drives, and I really do love audiobooks as a way of like keeping up with my reading when life gets really hectic, but I'm not even gonna try to guess what I'm gonna be in the mood for, because when I get like in my own head about my reading, mood reading, the style of narrator dramatically impacts whether I'm going to listen to that audiobook or not. So we're going to let the chips fall where they may for that one. I may not read any of these. You may come back at the end of September and my wrap up will be something complete. It might just be 27 Animorphs books, and if it is, sorry, but that's what you sign up to on my channel. So have a wonderful reading week, have a wonderful reading month, and I will check back in a month's time. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. Bye guys.